I have to be honest with you. When I first saw the title of the material for our deep dive today, I actually laughed out loud.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and not in not in a haha, this is funny kind of way. More of a you have got to be kidding me way.
Let me guess, it was the ultimate illusion part?
Exactly. The headline is literally pain, the ultimate illusion. And my immediate thought was, right, try telling that to someone passing a kidney stone
Oh, man, yeah.
or someone going through a terrible divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Because in those moments, pain is like the only thing that isn't an illusion.
It feels like the bedrock of reality.
Right. It demands all your attention. It overrides everything else.
It really does. It feels like the most honest thing in the universe because it's the one thing you just can't argue with.
You really can't.
Like, you can debate philosophy with someone, you can debate politics all day long, but you cannot debate a migraine. It just is.
It's just there.
Yeah. And to be fair to the source material we're diving into today, it's really not trying to gaslight you.
Okay, good.
It is not saying the sensation itself is fake. If you drop a hammer on your toe, that throbbing is very real bioelectric data.
I am so glad you said that.
Mm.
Because if the premise was it's all in your head, I was honestly going to wrap this up right now.
No, the premise is much more nuanced than that, and honestly, it's much more helpful. The argument here is that while the sensation is absolutely real, the meaning we assign to it, that's often a complete fabrication.
Okay, so the illusion isn't the hurt itself.
Exactly. The illusion is the story the hurt tells you. It's the story about who you are now and how long this is going to last.
So we're really distinguishing between the raw signal and the narrative we build around it.
Spot on. It's the difference between saying, my leg hurts and my life is over.
Wow, yeah. That's a huge gap.
It is. And that gap, that tiny space between the nerve firing and the brain coming to a massive conclusion, that is where we actually have some agency.
So the mission of this deep dive today is to see if we can unpack that, to see how we can retrain our brains to stop turning a simple biological signal into a full-blown identity crisis.
That is exactly the goal.
Which, I mean, it sounds great on paper, but biologically speaking, isn't pain kind of designed to be a crisis?
How do you mean?
Well, from an evolutionary standpoint.
Right.
If I touch a hot stove, my body should be screaming crisis.
Right.
If it didn't, I would just stand there and burn my hand off.
You have hit on the fundamental paradox of the whole thing. Pain is a guardian. That is its primary job.
Right.
The material defines pain not as this enemy we have to fight, but as a messenger. The core definition they use, which I love, is just something requires awareness.
Something requires awareness.
That's it. It's just a request for attention.
That is so neutral. It's almost bureaucratic, honestly.
But it is neutral. That's the whole point. Physical pain is really just a status report. It's your body saying tissue damage in sector 4 or inflammation in the left knee.
Just data.
Just data. It's information. And if we didn't have that information, we wouldn't survive past childhood.
Because we wouldn't know when to stop doing something dangerous.
Exactly. There are actually these very rare conditions, like congenital analgesia, where people are born completely unable to feel physical pain.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and their lives are incredibly dangerous. They break bones without even knowing it. They'll chew right through their own tongues as toddlers.
That is terrifying.
Because they completely lack the dashboard warning lights that keep the human machine running safely.
So the pain is actually the body aggressively trying to preserve itself. It's a survival mechanism.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting, because this applies to emotional pain, too.
Which is definitely a harder pill to swallow.
It really is. We tend to view grief or heartbreak or deep loneliness as these completely unnecessary punishments. Like, why do we have to feel this?
Right, like it's just a glitch in the software.
But the source material argues that emotional pain is just as functional as physical pain. It indicates a very real threat to our social survival.
Social survival, like a boundary being crossed.
Exactly, or a critical connection being lost.
Yeah.
You have to remember, we are social primates. Isolation or betrayal was historically just as dangerous to our actual survival as a broken leg.
Because if you're kicked out of the tribe, you die.
Exactly. So when you feel that awful chest-caving sensation of grief or rejection, that is your nervous system highlighting something incredibly valuable.
Like an attachment or a core need.
Yes. It's an unmet need or a meaning that is under threat. It's just the mind using distress to protect what matters to you.
Okay, so up to this point, I'm totally with you. Pain is a functional signal. It keeps us alive, it protects our bodies, it protects our relationships.
Right.
But here is where I get stuck. And this is where I think that illusion part really comes into play. If pain is just a signal, why does it stick around so long?
Mm.
Why does it morph into this heavy, suffocating dark cloud that feels like it is never going to leave? Because a normal signal, like a fire alarm, it beeps, so you leave the building and then you shut it off.
But pain feels like a siren that someone turned on and then completely forgot how to disable.
And that right there is what the text calls the narrative trap. This is really the crux of our entire deep dive today.
The narrative trap.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is this critical split-second moment where the brain stops processing the pain as information and starts processing it as identity.
Oh, wow. So this is the shift from I hurt to I am broken.
That is exactly it. Think about the basic grammar of those two sentences. I hurt describes a temporary state.
Right, like I am cold or I am hungry.
Exactly. But I am broken describes a permanent trait. It is a complete fusion of your self-concept with the sensation you're feeling.
It becomes who you are.
Yes, and the material points out why this happens. Because pain floods our attention so completely, because it's designed to override everything else, the brain makes a logical error.
What kind of error?
It assumes that because the pain is the loudest thing in the room, it must be the truest thing. It must be the only truth. It crowds out all the context. It's like, okay, imagine you are in a pitch black room and someone suddenly shines a massive spotlight right in your eyes.
Okay.
You can't see the furniture. You can't see the door. You can't even see your friend standing right next to you. All you see is the light.
That's a great way to put it.
And after a while, you start to genuinely believe that the whole entire world is just that blinding light.
That is a perfect analogy. And in that temporary blindness, your internal monologue totally shifts. We stop reporting the weather like, hey, it's storming right now, and we start defining the climate.
I live in a storm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The text contrasts these specific internal sentences. The healthy, functional view is, I am experiencing pain right now. But the illusion, the trap, is the brain saying, this is who I am now.
This is who I am now. Man, that is a terrifying thought. Because the second you accept that narrative, you stop looking for the door out of the dark room.
Right.
You just give up and start, I don't know, decorating the prison cell.
You do. And it's not because you are weak or pessimistic. It is just because the biological mechanism of pain is literally designed to be all-consuming.
It forces you to look at it.
But this actually brings us to the second part of the illusion, which I found even more fascinating in the reading, the distortion of time.
Oh man, this part really hit home for me. The idea that pain compresses time.
Tell me about it.
Well, I had the flu last month. Just a regular bad flu, nothing actually life-threatening. But I distinctly remember lying on my couch at like 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, completely convinced that I'd never been happy in my entire life.
Yep.
And that I would never be happy again. Like, this fever is my permanent residence now.
It is amazing how quickly we lose all perspective, isn't it?
It is instantaneous. Why does our brain do that? Why do we completely lose the ability to remember that just yesterday we were perfectly fine?
Again, it comes back to an evolutionary quirk. When you are in danger, and remember, to your nervous system, a pain signal means danger, your brain does not want you daydreaming about the past. And it doesn't want you planning for the future. It wants you right here, right now, dealing with the immediate threat.
So it forces you into the present.
Exactly. It collapses your time horizon. The present moment suddenly feels eternal because, biologically speaking, the present moment is the only one that matters for your survival right then.
So the sensation of this will last forever is actually just a biological trick to make me focus on now.
Exactly. The source material calls this an unreliable prophecy.
Unreliable prophecy. I like that.
Your brain is basically trying to predict the future based on a single current data point. It says, because your body hurts right now, you will hurt in 10 minutes, and you will hurt in days, and you will hurt in 10 years.
But that is statistically false.
Completely false, because the one absolute constant in biology is change.
Right. We aren't statues.
We are processes. The text actually lists out these core realities that we totally forget when we're suffering. Things like nervous systems eventually regulate.
Tissue heals.
Tissues heal. Grief softens over time. Your perspective widens. Even with chronic pain, which is its own really complex beast, it fluctuates in intensity.
It's never just a flat line.
Exactly. It ebbs and flows, but the illusion, the narrative trap, tells you it is a flat line stretching out to infinity.
And that is where the real despair comes from. It's not the pain itself that breaks you down. It's the conviction that the pain is infinite.
Precisely. If I told you right now, Hey, I'm going to pinch your arm really, really hard for exactly 10 seconds, you could totally handle it.
Yeah, I just grit my teeth.
You'd count to 10 and it would be over. But
Mm.
if I said, I'm going to pinch your arm really hard and I am never, ever going to stop, you would instantly panic.
I would freak out.
But the physical sensation in that first second is exactly the same. The suffering entirely comes from the concept of never.
Wow. Okay, so we have a brain that constantly turns a helpful signal into a permanent identity, and we have a nervous system that actively lies to us about time.
It's a pretty rough combination.
It really is. So the big question for you and for the listeners is, how do we actually intervene here?
Right. What do we do about it?
The source material gives us a really practical framework for this. It calls it the shift from sentence to signal, and it outlines 4 specific tools to make this shift happen: breath, curiosity, proportion, and support.
Yes, and I want to emphasize that these aren't just fluffy, feel-good self-help words. They are actual mechanical interventions designed to break the illusion.
Let's start with the first one then,
Right.
because it seems the most basic, but it's probably the most ignored. Breath. And I don't just mean breathing to stay alive. I mean actively using breath as a tool. Why is this step number 1?
Well, think about it. The exact moment a sharp pain hits you, physical or emotional, what is the very first thing your body does?
I clench up. Everything tightens. Honestly, I probably hold my breath without realizing it.
You brace yourself. It is the resistance reflex. We all subconsciously try to put up armor against the sensation. But the text highlights a massive paradox here. Resistance actually amplifies the pain. When you physically clench your muscles around an injury, you're increasing the pressure and restricting blood flow.
Ooh, right.
And when you mentally brace against a difficult emotion, you just create secondary anxiety about having the emotion.
So it's literally like a Chinese finger trap. The harder you pull away and resist, the tighter it grips you.
Exactly. So breath is your reverse gear. Slow, deep, regulated breathing directly signals your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode.
The calm down mode.
Right. It chemically tells your brain, look, I know the alarm bells are ringing, but we are actually safe enough in this moment to breathe. It lowers the volume on the panic, which then allows you to actually assess the signal clearly.
Which perfectly leads into the second tool, curiosity. Now, I have to challenge this one just a little bit.
Go for it.
If I am in absolute agony, being curious feels like a really big ask. I do not want to study my headache. I want to evict it.
Of course you do. That is the completely natural reaction. But eviction isn't always an option right away. Curiosity here isn't about enjoying it. It's about fundamentally shifting your vantage point.
Getting some distance.
Yes. Instead of being the person drowning helplessly in the river, you actively become the person standing on the riverbank, just watching the water flow by.
Okay, I like the visual, but what does that look like practically? Am I supposed to literally interview my back pain?
In a weird way, yes. You strip away the catastrophic narrative and you just look at the raw data.
Okay.
Instead of thinking, my head is killing me, my day is ruined, you ask yourself, okay, where exactly is the sensation? Is it sharp or is it dull? Is it radiating heat or does it feel cold? Does it feel heavy?
You're just dissecting it.
You're deconstructing it. When you break the pain down into pure components like heat, pressure, location, it stops being this massive, terrifying monster called suffering.
It becomes manageable parts.
Exactly. It becomes a collection of passing sensations. You are separating the sensation from the story. You feel the pain, but you question the narrative.
Feel the pain, question the narrative. I really like that. It puts you in an active role. You aren't just passively taking a beating from your own nervous system.
And that active role leads directly to the third tool, which I think is so often missed, proportion.
Proportion.
We talked earlier about how pain is that blinding spotlight in a dark room. Proportion is the intentional act of forcing yourself to turn on the other lights in the room.
Widening the lens.
Exactly. The text suggests that pain always demands 100% of your mental screen. Proportion is the act of consciously reminding yourself of what isn't in pain right now.
Okay, so like my back hurts, but
But my hands are working perfectly fine. My lungs are breathing clear air. The sun is actually shining outside my window right now. I have a good friend coming over later to watch a movie.
that almost feels like practicing gratitude. But it sounds more mechanical than that, more like calibration.
Calibration is the perfect word for it. It is not toxic positivity. It's not pretending the back pain magically doesn't exist. It is simply placing that back pain into a much larger context.
Making it smaller by making the world bigger.
Right. It's reminding your brain that while this hurts is absolutely true, The thought everything is terrible is demonstrably false. It dilutes the heavy concentration of the suffering.
It actively prevents that I am broken narrative from taking root because you're literally listing out all the parts of you in your life that are not broken.
Exactly. And finally, we have the fourth tool, which might honestly be the most vital one for our species: support.
Support.
This circles back to the idea that we are deeply social animals. The source makes a really poignant observation about how we typically tend to handle pain in modern society, especially emotional pain.
We hide it.
We hide it, we isolate ourselves.
Oh, yeah. We don't want to be a burden to anyone, or we feel this deep shame that we aren't over it yet, so we just retreat.
And biologically speaking, that is entirely backward. Pain is naturally a request for support. Think about a little child who scrapes their knee on the sidewalk. What is the very first thing they do?
They immediately run to a parent.
They seek co-regulation, being physically held or just being heard and validated by a safe person. That actually releases neurochemicals in the brain that measurably reduce the perception of physical and emotional pain.
But as adults, we somehow convince ourselves we're supposed to just white-knuckle it completely alone.
Which just creates this massive feedback loop of danger in the body. If you are hurting and you are totally alone, your ancient brain registers the threat level as critical.
Because alone means vulnerable.
Right. But if you are hurting and you are safely surrounded by your tribe, the threat level drops to manageable. The text makes a strong argument that sharing the burden with someone isn't just venting or complaining. It is literally offloading survival stress from your nervous system.
So the narrative of I am broken really flourishes in the dark isolation phase. But when you drag it out into the light and actually share it with someone else, it shrinks back down just I am hurting.
And I am hurting is a reality we can actually work with.
This whole framework, breath, curiosity, proportion, support, it really is just about reclaiming your agency, isn't it? You might not be able to control that initial biological signal. You can't control that a nerve fired or that your heart broke. But you have complete control over how you receive and process it.
You control the translation. The signal comes into your brain as raw data. You alone decide if you translate that data into a sentence of doom or just a signal of misalignment.
Let's talk about that word for a second. Misalignment. The source uses that specific word as the ultimate antidote to the feeling of doom.
It does.
Because doom is a dead end. There's nowhere to go from doom.
But misalignment implies that there is just a mechanical issue that needs to be addressed.
It completely changes the nature of the problem from existential to logistical.
I love that. If you think I am doomed, your body collapses. There's nothing to do. But if you think something in my life is misaligned, you can get to work.
Right, maybe the misalignment is just your posture at your desk.
Or maybe it's a toxic dynamic at your workplace. Or maybe it's just a severe lack of sleep. Misalignment can be diagnosed and corrected, or at the very least managed. Doom is just the end of the road.
It's a massive shift from being the helpless victim of your own story to actually being the editor of the story.
That is a beautiful way to put it. You are the editor. The pain just provides the rough draft. And let's be honest, that first rough draft is usually incredibly messy, overdramatic, and scary.
Always.
But you have the power to edit it. You can fix the punctuation. You can actively change the tense from this is forever to this is just for right now.
I do want to circle back to something important, though, for the listener out there who might be dealing with something chronic. Because we have talked a lot about healing and shifting and tissues repairing, but I know there are people listening who have been in severe pain for years.
Yes.
And hearing, oh, it fluctuates, might sound incredibly frustrating when their baseline is always so high.
That is a very fair point, and it's crucial we address it. I do not want to minimize the exhausting grind of chronic pain. The source material openly acknowledges that for some people, the physical signal does not just turn off.
Right.
In those specific cases, the illusion we're talking about isn't the false idea that the pain will completely stop. The illusion is the belief that the pain completely destroys the self.
Can you expand on what that means?
Even if chronic pain is a constant daily companion, the trap is letting it become your only companion. The work there relies heavily on proportion and identity.
Okay.
It's the daily and sometimes hourly fierce practice of saying to yourself, yes, there is pain in this room with me, but I am also in this room, and I am not the pain.
You're drawing a boundary line.
It is maintaining just a sliver of separation so that the pain doesn't completely colonize your entire soul.
It's actively defending the territory of you.
Yes. Defending the parts of you that can still laugh at a joke, or really taste a good cup of coffee, or listen to a deep dive like this, even while the pain is sitting right there next to you. Doing that is a genuinely heroic act.
It really is. It totally shifts the definition of what healing even means. Healing doesn't always have to mean cured. Sometimes healing just means remaining undefeated.
Undefeated by the narrative. That is the ultimate goal.
Man, this has been a lot to process. I feel like we have basically taken apart the engine of human suffering and looked at all the gears.
We really did.
So let's try to recap this journey real quick before we let everyone go. We started with the foundational idea that pain is just a functional signal. It simply means something requires awareness.
Right. It's a biological messenger, not a moral failing or a punishment.
But then, we humans inevitably fall into the narrative trap. We fuse our identity with the sensation, I hurt right now, morphs into I am broken. And our brain compresses time, making us falsely believe the pain is a permanent state, a prophecy of forever.
And as we learned, that prophecy is a lie. The core reality of biology is fluctuation. Bodies change, emotions shift, states pass.
And finally, we talked about the practical shift. We have to stop resisting and bracing against it, which only tightens the trap. Instead, we meet the pain with those 4 tools. Breath, to manually reset the nervous system.
Curiosity, to separate the raw sensation from the terrifying story.
Proportion, to widen the lens and see the rest of our lives. And support, to share the load and signal safety to our brains.
Moving from sentence to signal.
It sounds so simple when we list it out like that,
Yeah.
but I know putting it into practice is the work of a lifetime.
It absolutely is. It is a daily practice. You are going to forget. You will definitely fall back into the trap sometimes. You will believe the lie again,
Of course.
and then you'll pet yourself. You will take a deep breath, you will widen the lens, and you will remember that you are so much more than just the signal.
And that actually leads me to the final thought I want to leave everyone with today. We have talked a lot about how pain deeply relies on this illusion of permanence to hold its power over us. It absolutely demands that we believe it is forever. That is its main weapon.
Right.
But if that false claim of permanence is the actual source of its overwhelming power, what happens to that power the exact moment you just stop believing the lie?
The source material suggests its power changes immediately. The prison door just unlocks.
Wow.
You might still have to sit in the cell for a little bit, but you know the door is open, and that changes absolutely everything.
A shift in belief might just be the strongest pain management tool we have. Thank you for diving so deep with us on this one.
Take care of yourselves out there.